Alright. Let's get this over with. If you're wondering why the placement of the camera looks slightly different than what some of you may be accustomed to. I'm gonna put this. Like that. Well, it's because recently I was gifted a new tripod slash recording stick by my family members, which I'm incredibly grateful for. However, balancing the darn thing, well, I'm just gonna have to tinker with it and, well, figure out how to, properly stabilize it. But, yeah. Haven't had one of these things since, well, now, 2 years ago, whilst I was living in Laval, and it was stolen. Yeah, that's a significant temperature drop. I am gonna have to put you two back on. Okay. Not the most appealing, but effective. Hate doing that. The, well, very minor wind gust, I don't know how it'll disrupt the speaker, but in case you can't hear, there's some fireworks going off in specific areas of the city I'm in. Because, well, it's now an hour past New Year's. Western world's New Year's date. And I wanted to make this video as usual, or as it has been recently, quite a few days prior, but well, procrastination got the better of me. But I'm getting it over with now. So I don't imagine that this is going to be as long as previous videos I've made of the sort, but well, I just want it done. So I decided that I am in fact going to make a correctional video for information that I have spouted on here in the past that I was either wrong about or slightly misled on. I've been meaning to do so really since my time in Quebec City. But things got ahead of me. And I thought that I would just go about it as I have with with the handful of previous uploads dedicated to such, where I just state certain things I had said in this specific video here after I'd gone back and looked over the content and found it. Here how I specifically worded things, what my opinion was at the time. Because in the past, that was, it seemed to be most effective. But, you know, with everything that I've discovered, how I've emotionally progressed and my cognition has changed and altered over the last 3 years, I said, nah, screw it. There needs to be an alteration to how I go about it. So, and I tried to do so. If you will have seen the recent upload, Where We Go, titled Where We Go, where I was discussing how, in terms of a certified career path, I will be entering into a form of naturopathic, medicine. Into the naturopathic medical care industry, some form, though all of my self-proclaimed titles remaining as a neuroscientist, psychoanalyst, socioanalyst, sexoanalyst, still as an independent medic. Well, in that video, I tried to go over an amount of information corrections and also detail a reintroduction to myself. But given time constraints, more specifically storage problems on my device, well, that didn't pan out. So, and because I then decided I was gonna make a traditional information correction video, and then deciding to go about it in a different manner than I have in the past, I figured, you know what? The reintroduction will be this. And what I mean by that is, here and now, I am going to first revise my image on here. Clear up some confusion in regards to my current ideological stances, my current opinions on things, because, and then once I do that, once that's out of the way, I will specify whatever alterations of information from that I'm making here based upon previous things I've said online. I'll specify what those are after the fact. Because I think just reintroducing myself, what I believe now, what my, I guess, reiterating what my new goals are for the future, the rough outline goals. Detailing that will just serve as a correction of previous statements and stances of mine on its own. Simply because I literally, people, I tried going back through my content and just doing an overview of everything I've made commentary on, everything I've discussed, all the topics that I've made videos about, including specific people that I've mentioned here and there, and I can't. It's too much with how long my videos are and everything that I have discussed, everything I've done up until this point. It's just, there's too many things to name that I literally can't remember, like, in the moment recording. I literally can't. There's no way. So this will be beneficial, much more beneficial. And yeah, you'll see me, help me get used to this, you'll see me just looking at the runtime of the footage throughout the recording, just like this, to make, oh, you gotta be kidding me. Are you covering it up? Okay, now I can see. Just to keep track, so that it doesn't stop on me again and I continue rambling for a whole 30 minutes without realizing that the footage is no longer rolling. So, hardcore viewers of mine, you know who I am. You know what I do, what I have done, what kind of person I am. But things have advanced, I'll say. So, I am someone who believes that the modern world is completely, systematically controlled in the West through subtle economic dictatorly practices, and in the East, more blatant governmental dictatorly practices, but nonetheless, it's systematically controlled by forces of very undetectable manipulation and positions of such. Okay, I'm gonna also have to dart into an ATM terminal of some kind soon, so that I can warm up. This Earth, at this point in the 21st century, is ruled by elite factions, different portions of those who hold extreme financial wealth, and I don't even want to call them. I'm obviously talking about the ultra rich, but I don't even want to. I don't even like calling them that in a sense, because I mean they don't make the money that's circulated in the global economy. They don't make that money of what little information we have displayed about their affairs. They don't make that. They don't make the money. They're making the money. I guess I'll put it that way. They literally produce, their resources produce global currency, and that's not the main thing that they control. And no, I'm not just talking about corporations such as these factions of elitist figures have slowly accumulated the resources to do so over centuries, not even, well, yes, decades. In the last 1 century, the last 100 years, it's amplified, but have further expanded control over the ability to do so for the last maybe 2.5 to 3 centuries. Now, I've already, to people who understand the content I try and make in writing that I try to get underway, this is, well, this is obvious. It's obvious that I believe that. But why do I believe that? Well, because I've had a little too much time for introspection in my life. I've seen a little too much by this point. With the development of my mental capacity, there's been one too many patterns that I've been able to draw, both figuratively and literally. That I've been able to logically organize and correlate. I've been influenced by enough factors, particularly individuals other individuals who have done similar things to me, made observant arguments and publicized them, and given my own life experience, I've noticed too much. And I'm not now, for the continuing, morally, I am a left-winger. I'm not what I would consider to be far left, or extremist left, whatever you want to call it. Why? Because there is way too much dogmatism for the two types of extreme leftist individuals. And this is another thing that I'll state right here in regards to when I've mentioned this in the past. Something that I've never cleared up is that for the longest time, when I've been talking about those on the far left, I don't just mean, first off, I'm not talking about the bullshit false progressivism that is pushed through these social media platforms. That's a skewed version, an intentionally skewed version of leftism. That's not what I'm talking about. And I'm not just talking about academic far left, individuals who have made some prominence for themselves. I am also referring to left-wing militias and organizations that exist within the major cityscapes of different corners of the world, and also the revolutionary groups who very obviously exist in the rural areas and or have holdups out in the wilderness the woodland, or the naturally preserved areas of countries, which includes Canada. It's, well, to someone like me, it's apparent that they're out there. I'm also referring to those individuals involved with such as well. And further, in regards to my leftist ideals, I also believe that we are living in an era of we're living in an era of new manipulation tactics in terms of the mass media that falsely depicts it as if Western society has become more progressive in terms of ethnocultural background, in terms of sexuality and gender display, in terms of certain religious acceptance or non-religious acceptance, and that we're living in a time of better access to education, better medical procedures, just overall more acceptance and actual beneficial integration of different demographics into society, and that class issues are just well, it's a loose nuisance that can be worked around. All of which is a mass lie. Oh wow, is this light ever gonna turn? Yeah, I still refuse to use these things. Okay, if you're not gonna turn, then yep. Break the law like a true anarchist. All of what I just mentioned has been promoted to deter and distract the oppressed of the world of all these demographics, which the oppression is real. Absolutely real. Just not in the way that it is presented now in the modern era. I've really got to get inside. I'm not going to delve into all of it here, obviously, but I actively am someone who has realized this and morally I am appalled by it. Why? Because just like the manipulation tactics of the past, it is an active threat to human life, an active threat to children, to humanity as a whole. It is not something that should be taken lightly by anyone like me of rising leftist morality, as I call it, because this is the beginning of a new age of extreme societal trauma because of said performative activism. And I refuse to buy into this delusion. And I have spent, going back to all the way to the beginning of this channel, I've spent, I should have mentioned at the beginning, yeah, so before this video goes live, I will have made another nudity, non-sexual nudity video upload for, well, benefit of spreading the ideology of nudism. And I tried to make for the first time, I tried to make a short format version, actually uploading a portion of it to my shorts catalog. And I now have officially received my first channel strike. Yeah, so you won't be seeing this video. Yeah, I said it was this right now. It's being recorded on January 1st. You're not gonna see it until probably January 8th. So yeah, as I've been barred from uploading content for a week, at least in terms of video content. Okay, for a second I thought, oh, that's a foul. That's a foul fume. It was like propane mixed with something else, I don't know what. For a second I thought that was my phone. Good thing not. So, yeah, and the video, the 3-minute version is still up. Got age restricted, that's typical. But, the short format version got taken down. I tried to re-upload it, I got a strike. And I know why that is. But anyway, so, you won't be viewing this until a week has passed. So, since the beginning of this channel, for the longest time, I have tried my damnedest to, since realizing the corruption that I'm surrounded by, interpersonally and societally, I have tried to put to words what these horrific functions of the world are. I've tried to inform people about it. I've tried to spread my perception about it. but there were things that I was naive about. So, in particular, I used to affiliate myself with libertarian communism. I used to call myself a libertarian in a governmental sense, believing that minimal, organized bodies of governance could be beneficially done in a even larger scale society and maintain well. Well, now, being an anarcho-communist, an anarcho-communitarian, I reject that notion, as I don't believe that any form of governing body, well, one, I believe it is inherently authoritarian in some manner, and I don't believe there is any possibility of set legislative enforcement being possible. Given everything I've seen, given everything that has been apparent throughout the history of the last few centuries. And I believed for a time that for a long while there's another thing that you've probably noticed in this video. Recently, there's been a lot of things that have happened recently, but one of the most incredible progressions that has come about in my life right now is I've adorned, in my personification, a new brand of confidence. You can hear it in my voice, no doubt. You can probably see it in how I'm generally, how my demeanor is right now, how I'm articulating myself. It wasn't so apparent probably in, well, certain recent prior video uploads. That's also because I had the screen faced towards me when I was recording, so I could see myself. Well, that's because I'll talk about that in a moment. Anyway, I used to try, and I've always preached empathizing with other human beings, and I still do. But I've also always, for the longest time, believed that empathy, sympathy, and anger are not inherently separate. Violence and self-defense are not the same thing either. True violence, that is. And being gentle is not being compassionate at all. Certainly not to yourself. And in my earlier attempts at creating commentary on here, I really tried to I really try to tailor my how I presented myself, let's say, in a manner that I hoped would be understood by... I tried to predict how people would view me and how vulnerable I am. I even now, I still do mull over the wording I use. In some amount, I believe justifiably so. Because I didn't want to... I tried so hard to make sure that there was no room for misinterpretation of my thought process. I tried so hard, as many, unfortunately, those amongst either the falling leftist backgrounds, who are part of the false progressive ideals, have been indoctrinated and convinced of such, those who are of centrist political ideology, maybe center-rightist, even those who are of the academic far left demographics. I try to be open to debate. I try to make myself, and I consciously convinced myself that I was open to different ideas, open to discussion, open to all the other bullshit, open to changing my mind. But when my morality crisis and existential crisis came to a head, and further, when I begun my journey up to the Canadian North over 2.5 years, or took 2.5 years to complete, and then I started making, like I said before, I started putting the patterns that I observed mentally to type with my theories of humanity, with my diagrams. When I started doing all that, then eventually returning to southern Canada, after a series of unfortunate events, and then whilst being back here in this region of the country, enduring yet another health crisis, as I have dealt with similar things in the past, as certain individuals in my life, certain individuals who are out of my life now, would know. But this being the worst of them all, over this whole year, after all this, realizing that Actually, no. I'm not open to debate. And not in an absolutist sense, because I am opposed to absolutism. As I've stated. Not being open to debate, difference of opinion, is not refusing to admit being wrong. I am only open to debate if somebody actually has, and I keep saying the word provably, I've said it in the past multiple times, and here we go with the, I'm self-projecting here, but anyone who's had the same struggles with other people, here we go with the bullshit innate contradictions of life. Proof of this, no proof of, or supposedly not being able to prove anything. If you can't coherently, I'm only open to debate if someone can coherently, through their own constructed concepts, actually explain to another person their logic. If they can actually genuinely meet the other person where they mentally are and run through their ideals. And that's not centralized to one language, one outlined methodology amongst, as far as I'm concerned, leftism. Or amongst all of the political, okay, in terms of, okay, if you can't actually genuinely have some give a coherent explanation, then I'm not open to debating you. I am, literally, I will now, I haven't done it yet, but I will say my piece, very shortly, and then I will cut off a conversation. And no, not in a narcissistic sense of just trying to derail something. Actually, yeah, that really isn't. That's how narcissistic individuals entrap you in continuing a conversation. And I don't play into that anymore. I was surrounded when I was at the beginning of this channel, when I was more naive, when I had my pure intentions, as I view them, but was naive on certain ideological stances. Yeah, that view is closed off. Okay. I was surrounded by a little too many, and specifically actually three No, that looked like 4. It's just... appendages sort of freezing up here. 3. Dim-witted egocentrist. 1 sociopathic... Okay, no, sorry. 2 sociopathic narcissists. 1 in another country who I was connected to long distance. The other, someone who I worked with, who pretended to be, and still does pretend to be, someone of far-left convictions, which, I said I would make a separate video on this, which I'm gonna. I'm not gonna delve into it too much here, but, I laid into them over a voice message a while back. It was the last thing I ever said to them. And, unless they want to make amends, it's the last thing I'm ever gonna say to them. Even if I see them in person, well, I'll give them a few gestures of my hand and promptly tell them to go fuck themselves and don't talk to me unless you have something else, something more genuine to say. They pretended to be of extremist, really extremist left-wing values, and we would constantly get into debates with each other whilst on the job. And for the longest time, they had me fooled. They had me fooled that they believed a lick of what the fuck they were saying. That they believed a word of the horseshit that they threw up out of their mouth. But then, after certain events, why I'm bringing this up here is because I'm explaining why I'm no longer open to this very I'm no longer open to debate culture, I guess you could call it, in political spheres. Because someone like that only engages in philosophical discussion to ensure that they will maintain some form of a sex life and to feel like they're this profound ponder of the grand mysteries of the universe. And it makes me sick. People have misconstrued me as... I feel that many have misconstrued me as being someone who only lightly engages in philosophy, as if, because they're convinced of such, as if philosophical concepts are just some fascinating pastime. And I used to really... I never tolerated these people. when I knew, or I felt I knew, that they were genuinely convinced of these values, I would refute them. I would combat the ignorance, what I thought was ignorant, even with my own ignorance, or my underdeveloped ideas. I would rebuttal. Thank gosh. A bank branch. Please have an ATM terminal that I can just slip into for a bit. I would fight back, but in a way that I try to present myself as if I was someone who heard their perspective. I understand where you're coming from. I know why you believe what you do, but this is a very problematic notion. I used to, for someone who believed in aggressive empathy, I wasn't someone who practiced it. I was maintaining the more, a softened, we're going. I maintained a softened, demeanor, presentation, to make sure that they didn't feel misunderstood. Make sure that they knew that I wasn't misinterpreting them. Please. Oh, maybe are you open? No, you're not. Nice. You're on the other end? Oh, good. Lovely. Fuck off. After hours, please use our exterior ATM. Of course. Oh, the irony. The one mega corporate bank branch in the last 5 years that has a sectioned off ATM terminal that isn't open after business hours. Nice. Oh, that's perfect. That's rich. Oh, where the frick am I gonna go now? It's New Year's Eve and everything's closed. Oh my. Okay. Well, don't want to stop moving, that's for sure. That wouldn't be good. Okay. 59 minutes in. So, but now, okay. I don't hear it anymore. No longer. Because I've seen too much of reality, provable reality, in whatever way you construct it, provable reality, to to tolerate it in the sense, well, again, or to not condone said nonsense, but still be very light in how I handled it. No more. With all that has been done to me, it really is honestly astonishing. It is astonishing to me that I have not become a very destructive person. So I used to believe in Are you open? Oh, you seem to be. How about you? Oh, whatever. Let's choose you. I used to be open to debate, air quotes. Now I'm not someone such as. Hold on. Evening. Are your washrooms open to the south? Yes, please. Thank you. So, I've had it in that regard. And I no longer, relating to that, I no longer use this platform to air quote, said it in my second Too Much Talking Twink video, start a conversation. Conversations have already been started decades ago. I do this to provide solace to anyone like me who finds this content and provide what education I can afford. And unlike the phony individuals who I've known in my life, who I've met in numerous settlements in this country, or the people who are so disillusioned that they think life is just some horrid mistake. Think that the fact that they wake up each morning is just some fluke of their biology. I have endured I've endured extensive suffering. For trying to provide such content, provide my insights. Sorry, do you know any place around here that's open 24 hours or that's still in operation at this time?
Forward.
Sorry?
Forward. Any food court?
Sorry, I couldn't.
You asking for any food court or is that what kind of place you want?
Really just any place that I could stand in to warm up, or just, it really doesn't matter as long as it's open late. I don't really know.
I don't think so. It's a weekday and nothing will be open.
Yeah. Alright, well, thank you. Just thought I'd ask. Well, have a good night. Well, I guess I'll finish this at home. So, I believe there is a lot of falsehoods in every sector of society in the modern era. There's so much misinformation. There's so much truth that is portrayed as misinformation, and there's so much misinformation that's portrayed as only being half misinformation, if that makes sense. And people like me can't actually discuss this. We can't actually spread our ideals. We can't actually relay this in any major sense, because corporations that are all in conjunction to one another, the most major conglomerates in this world, who rule the governmental sectors, their lineages, literally, they are, anyone who is not affiliated to them is barred societally from actually obtaining such status. They suppress, censor this. In the West, it's subtle censorship. The most popular online term for it right now is shadow banning. I know that feeling. And it's enough. With all of it is enough to really make you want to give up. I have really had to deal with so many horrid people I've come across who just destroy their own lives and are just convinced of such bull crap, who are so cognitively damaged, disoriented, who are borderline deranged. And these people don't believe it that they are. They don't know what insanity actually looks like. Or some of them do, and they just do consciously. They think they are terrible people, and they just don't care. And that's from, but subconsciously, nobody believes that they're a horrid person. They wouldn't be enacting said moral values if they actually, if their psyche really believed that. And I no longer, okay, to lay it all out, because I really want to get to the point. I am a leftist. I am an anarcho-communist, social anarchist. I am against mass industrialization. I am against the actual racist, homophobic, sexist idiocy of various circles of different communities. I am for anything that is provably pro-human health, the essence of our life. My ideals are oriented around anything that can provably fulfill human psychology, human nature. I'm against organized religion in the sense of, well, in a sense of a private establishment of any kind, in that sense. But I still maintain the status spiritually that I am an agnostic atheist. Many individuals who think they are atheists in the world right now, it's another thing, they're not atheists, really, they're anti-atheists, which I completely oppose, as it's another delusional ideal disguised as salvation itself. Being agnostic and being atheistic are not contradicting in any sense. Being for agnosticism and anti-theism is, but not the other way. I have the right of way. Certain people who claim to be opposed to regulated legislature have told me to obey forces such as traffic laws. I have nearly been hit by a vehicle more times obeying the pedestrian crossing indications than I have actually assessing when it's an adequate time to cross where vehicles are not directly inbound for the intersection. I've nearly been killed by a car more times obeying the crosswalk. I've struggled so many times with suicidality. I try, for the longest time, I tried to, even when things got the worst for me, with how my online persona has been, I made a video in St. Paul de Montmagny talking about this, that titled "Suicide is fundamentally the stupidest thing you could do," which I still stand by. But I've tried to make light of things. I've always, even when I stopped doing internet sketch comedy, I've tried I've always managed to make myself appear more sarcastically resilient than When it's gotten to a near breaking point for me, I actually have been when the camera is off. Seriously, and why I get so fucking... I become enraged thinking of all these pathetic people I've been surrounded by who have done nothing. I mean it, literally nothing. Remotely. People who have not scratched the surface of really, really trying to actually change their lives in this world. Really nothing. When I find out that the people who I had so much faith in really are just scummy manipulators. Like, and I know like I've nearly hurled myself in front of a moving bus years ago. When the depression just... When my frontal cortex was just so drained of serotonin, and my amygdala was just real active from so much peripheral disruption. I seem like I mean it, and this is all for anyone who's viewed me, but you know what, I'm talking as well to my former co-workers who know this channel, who will see this. Actually, maybe you won't see this content, because I genuinely, honestly don't believe for these people in my life, that former co-workers of mine, extended family members. Whoops. Maybe even certain former employers, whatever else. I genuinely, I don't believe that you... I know that you all don't watch the content in full. But I genuinely don't believe, like, half the shit that people have broken off ties with me for. I genuinely don't believe you've actually seen me or heard me say it myself. I genuinely believe you've heard it through secondhand accounts. All just through secondhand accounts. I don't believe it, honestly, with half of it. Because you're that shallow. You're that weak-minded. You're that cowardly. But, like, to my former coworkers, to extended family of mine, like, you don't know, I seem like this just very, to half of them, I seem like this strange, mystic, introspective, artsy individual. And then either at the same time or to the other half, I seem like this pretentious, very weird, delusional, brain-damaged invalid who we either just need to help coax along so he doesn't step out of line, or I only indulge in because I don't want to deal with his nonsense. When I actually have interactions with him. Like, I know now, like, I know when I'm talking to you people. Like, and that's another thing I'll as a reintroduction. I've said it in essence before, but I'll just say it blatantly now. If I meet you, I'm telling you, I know you, if you're any of these people, I know you in 30 minutes, I'll know you. I'll know you're this type of person now. The signs are so, when you become so enlightened to psychoanalysis, the signs are so clear. So clear. It becomes so easy to understand the mannerisms, the tactics, the little verbal cues. It becomes, it's just so damn saddeningly easy. I just don't say it. I really should start saying it. I should start saying it in front of, I should start exposing these people in front of anyone in a major setting. I really should. I've already covertly revealed situations in different municipalities on here with certain individuals who I've covertly recorded. Which I do not regret. I still stand by that. Everything are done with covert recording. But I seem to people like this fascinating creature. I've said it before in a video. I'm tired of being seen as interesting. I don't mean like being called interesting. I'm tired of people having mild interest in just my being. I'm tired of being a piece of entertainment for people. And I don't make my writings, I didn't make my comedy to be that. I don't make my commentary to be that. I don't make my pornography to be that. I don't make my drawings to be that. I'm tired of just being a neat guy. Oh, you do traveling videos? You do political content? You get naked on camera? Oh, cool! Damn, I've never seen anything like that before, especially on YouTube. for as much as I seem to you people like I'm this well-educated, for many of you for the longest time you saw me as some culturally well-educated person, which I am, I damn well am, even despite the wrong convictions I've had of things, which I've corrected. I always seem like I just seem like this person people can like I'm an infinite shoulder to cry on. You don't know how many times I have nearly killed myself. You don't know. How many times I've almost like the nights where I've been thrown into such a suicidal fugue because of you people. Make no mistake, it is because of you. A certain individual with the initials PC, and I'm not saying that because of their false ideological convictions. No, their initials are actually PC. Who I used to work with, initials SJF. SJF, who's also a content creator. Bother to even remember your guys' names, your initials. You two, you preached fucking, you treated me, your ageist nonsense, you behaved as if these people behave as if they're like, okay, you know what? Those two, a certain lower level elitist friend who I've mentioned in the past, who I don't know if we're even friends anymore. I really don't. We haven't spoken in a while. I haven't bothered to call them. They haven't bothered to call me. Not like they ever did. My uncles, certain uncles of mine, certain cousins of mine, how you treated me when a certain incident happened, when I left a village that I was living in at the start of my journey. SJF and PC, you're fucking delusional, completely, you're purposeful. One of you, purposeful. Attempts to fiddle with a teenager for as much as your bullshit that you spouted. When I was friends with you, I was a fucking 16-year-old and a 17-year-old, and you were much older. You were a few years older. Despite your lies that you literally spouted while talking to me, and you'd invite me to these people invited me to events. brought me to play fucking board games with them, made me feel included in conversation, then would say, like, no, older individuals shouldn't be friends with younger individuals, shouldn't share these intimate vulnerabilities with them in terms of discussion and things of the sort, whilst literally talking to, in the Western world, what's legally considered a minor individual. You want to preach that you think fascists should be hung by their necks, that people who prey on children deserve to rot in this world? Fucking look at yourselves, because that's what you did, and I know one of you knows that that's what you did, and you don't care. You don't have to be a sexual pervert or a any form of physical abuser, or be shouting at someone and calling them vulgar names to be. You don't have to do any of that to be an abuser, to be a manipulator. And when you two abandoned me, when my extended family abandoned me, when I got too much, when my air quote nonsense got too much for them to deal with, the second that I turned 18, because, yeah, another false notion of the world. You're not an adult. You're not an adult, as far as neuroscience is concerned. You're not an adult anytime in your 20s even. Not until your late 20s. Certain cultures have known that for centuries, millennia. But I've nearly killed myself over you people. I mean that. You don't know that. And you are so fortunate. So fortunate that for as much as, when I last saw one of these individuals, they demanded that I take my phone out of my pocket to make sure I wasn't recording. Which, by the way, if we ever meet again in person, I'm not showing you if I am or not. If you ever want to apologize to me, you've lost that. That was a privilege. You've lost that privilege. I won't display whether I'm secretly recording you or not. You lost that privilege after what you've done to me. That's my defense. Absolutely. What? You're all lucky that I don't reveal your actual names on here. You're lucky. It is a privilege that I don't actually say your real names. That I don't detail your livelihoods. Other than vaguely on here. Especially you, other content creator. You're so lucky that I don't. I really have contemplated it recently, but I won't. Sue me for false defamation? What are you gonna do? What are you gonna sue for? That I said your name? That Okay, actually, no. More specifically, sue me with what finance? What? You can't hire a lawyer. Don't. You can't fool me with that. You can't hire a lawyer. No way. Especially not with the budget that you make your content on. The budget that all of you live on. Maybe my relatives could hire lawyers. But wow, that'll look great in whatever other public revealings I give of you. You destroyed your young nephew, your young cousin. Why? Because they said your name in an online video regarding terrible actions on a channel that is suppressed, that only dedicated followers see. I seem like this. I seem like this well-composed individual on here. But the people I've encountered have been so disgusting, absolutely disgusting, out of pure ignorance, and also and amounts of them malicious intentions, very much malicious intentions, who have felt infuriatized by a fucking by older individuals who have felt insecure because a teenager has proven them wrong, who have literally, this is the same sad story over and over again with people. Like, you felt so infuriatized by a kid younger than you. You just had to. And I know all of you have miserable lives already at your homes. You don't say it, but it's obvious looking back now, and you just need to feel aggrandized in your other social positions. But I have nearly, with what you've done to me, with what people have done to me, I have nearly ended my life so many times. But I don't. And I won't. I know no matter how dark it gets, I want to be alive. My natural end will be no different than if I created my end myself, so might as well stay to the natural end. Like to that other content creator, I know I said I would make this another video. But fuck, I'm tired of... I said it, I'm tired of doing this. I'm really tired of doing this. I was one of your fans. I think you forgot that. All the panels you've gone to, all the... Oh, and I still check in on your content, by the way. Dipshit. Oh, and... by the way, we never discussed this in person, but, so... which altar did I speak to last? Yeah, it's obvious to me now. I knew in one of your previous videos you mentioned you had dissociative identity disorder. I thought that you didn't realize which dissociative disorder it was that I thought you had maybe mislabeled that, but no. Yeah, we never talked about it in person. But, looking back, it's obvious that you covertly shifted a lot. Now, I don't know if all of your alters have a feud with me, or if it's just one or two, and another one who has... you may have memory recall to certain events with me, and when you come into my presence, have come back into my presence. The alter who doesn't have a problem with me shifts to an alter who does have traumatic relations to me, and it all goes to shit. I don't know, but you know what I'd like to know if I ever spoke to you again. But for whichever one understands this, I was a fan of yours. And you, honestly, your content, sadly, is still probably some of the best kids' content that's on this putrid platform. I mean that. A friend of mine years ago when I was really young, they showed me your channel. You know this story. It's a whole story. I didn't even know this person. Years ago, in a foreign country, someone showed me your channel. Then I just happened to move to the same city, get employment at the same place that you worked at. And it's revealed that, oh my gosh, I came into contact with your content earlier. And then I looked into you and I really enjoyed it, and we became supposedly friends. I called you one of my best friends. And I meant it. Same with you, PC. Called you one of my best friends. And you said to me that I was to you as well. SJF. You said, I remember it verbatim on that phone call. You said, well, my friend, the feeling is mutual. Yeah. Well, I guess mutual relations in that regard for you two are very flimsy. Okay, I'm gonna get inside. Because, man. Back indoors. A bit more safe and sound. A bit. I suffered both necessarily and unnecessarily, but a whole lot of unnecessity in regards to said suffering. Throughout my life. My family, and thus me, went from upper middle class to dirt poor, pretending to be better off. And I know I've gained so much knowledge in my now 22 years of life. Happy birthday to me. I'm now 22 years old. I've gained so much understanding, especially so within the last 3 years, that doing this just seems trivial. Alright, we're nearing 2 hours, so let's get on with it. So, I now believe that the only way to combat the horrible forces of the world as they are in the present day, with how invasive, subtle, silent they are, is to abstain from them. Can't fight it with violence. It makes that subtle violence clamp down even harder in very, very brutal ways. Can't fight it with what you may call peacefulness. I call myself a pacifist, not what people would contemporarily view as such. But you can't fight it with demonstration mobs, organizing rallies, screaming through a megaphone and holding picketing signs. Can't fight it by putting a scrap of paper with a hierarch's name on it in a ballot box on voting days. can't scream to administrative bodies hoping that they'll genuinely care for your pleas. The only thing that you can do in this world, the thing that I try and do in this world, is abstain from corruption as much as possible, defame it as much as possible, so that others like me, older, younger, of any ethnicity, gender, sexual orientation, ability, disability, class status, service, so that they can have solace and they can have confirmation that they are in fact right, or at least on the right course in life. To educate them, to help, or for those who have had destructive mentalities in the past and have undergone unconscious alterations that has allowed them to see a different means of survival. To provide them with said education so that they may continue their journey to real redemption, I guess you could call it. I aspire to actually be human. I have been ravaged. But, okay. Now for the specific corrections. Again, gotta keep looking. Yeah, you're fine. Earlier on in certain videos, I would give more praise than was necessary to the medical industry. I never intended, with videos such as when I made skits titled, my last skit, call it, titled When I Tell People I Want to Be a Pornographer. And my character in the video made comments on utilizing medications for treatment, when I used to say that there was both a psychological and a physiological separation, this duality, or an explanation as to why it was a problem. Even in that, I never meant for this disconnect, between the two. And I also, for medications, the mass production of medical industry, these invasive methods, though the basis, earlier westernized medicine, with the terrible environments were surrounded by, they can be useful at times. I never intended it to be just this complete promotion of it. But nonetheless, I was wrong. There's a comment I made I made it to Ottawa video in regards to alcohol, that the philosopher who claimed that alcohol doesn't cause vice, it reveals it, that was an incorrect statement. We know that it causes cognitive disrupt and things of the sort. No, well, that's just the physiological suppression of, well, conscious inhibitions. Being a neuroscientist, competent neuroscientist, we know that we have no actual proof of what consciousness is. We know it's not the physiological process. It's not just the neurons. The neurons are the projector and coordinator to consciousness and subconsciousness. Alcohol, when it's poorly refined and high, or even if it's well produced, such as ciders and things of the sort, or certain wines consumed in high amounts, they're depressant. They have that physical effect on cognition, but it's merely suppressing natural traumatic inhibitions. I was wrong there. In regards to comments I made on gender physiology early on, I still stand by those, because, one, there aren't just two physiological gender types. I'll do videos explaining this. My writings will explain this. There aren't. It is not just the two cisgenders in terms of chromosomal, hormonal, reproductive makeup. But it's also, but in that as well, I really differentiated between physiological gender and gender expression. In the video titled "Social Constructs Aren't Innately Problematic, and Should We See Capitalism as Fascism in Disguise?" Yes, to both, still. I had mentioned at the beginning how, even in the last video where I was psychoanalyzing myself, my personality, how I have elements myself of transgenderism in my orientation, that I believe that gender was physiological and gender expression, gender persona was separate, and couldn't even really call it that. It was a separate designation in regards to European outlines, which again aren't innately problematic. There is coherence to the earlier versions of it, but I was in a state at that point in Ottawa, just in complete intellectual chaos. So, and that whole statement, so convolutedly contrasting, it made no sense in that regard. So I was wrong about that. Earlier on, when I made comments in regards to environmentalism, specifically regarding the mass production of electric vehicles, when I first talked about such in Exploring Ottawa Part 1, I rightfully had made the observation that we have no beneficial way of doing so. And even later on, when I was in Montreal in the video in We're Never Gonna Abolish These Dictatorly Systems video, unless we go against them in mass, I made a comment again that I'm not opposed to the idea of electrical energy, just the concept of it, if we had any real way of sustainably doing it. Well, obviously we don't. And I'd still stand by that statement if we. Well, the whole statement really just seems. Well. It's just unnecessary now, because there is no. It's not that the problem isn't that they have a monopoly, these corporations have a monopoly on hydro energy. There is no way to sustainably do hydro energy. The mass amount of gas power it takes just to create lithium, to assemble these vehicles, to create these hydro pumping stations, wind turbines, for such a minor amount of energy that they really produce. There's no way. In regards, though, as well to statements I made in terms of in Exploring Ottawa Part 1 about how in the global climate crisis, we got to a point of critical catastrophe that we would pretty much be at a point of far off in the future, molten ash filled environments be inhospitable. Well, that was rather eccentric in description. I now believe that yes, it is a global catastrophe we're in. The companies, what is portrayed as not being involved with the mass emissions is involved with the mass emissions. It's just information is skewed intentionally. I believe that global society will take that one of two outcomes, or both, will happen before, most likely before we get to a point of critical environmental destruction. But if we were to get to that point, lands would be inhospitable for us for any long period of time in our then lifespan. But that is still, that would not be for at least another 1,000 years at the rate we're going. If we were to get to that point. And I made a comment in one of the Made It to Peterborough videos in regards to when I was purchasing my former motorized bicycle friend, Timmy, that I was hoping to get an electric bike, saying that it was better for the environment. I only meant that in regards to, at the time, I thought that the battery packs produced for electrical bicycles were better overall than the vehicles produced, and I had still some wrong inclinations about vehicles being produced, even though I didn't fully condone electrical power even at the time. But I was wrong. I mean, my golf cart, Trudy, they were powered by distilled water batteries. Slightly better than certain other ones on the market, but not great. And the bicycle battery packs are just as, they're harsh, very harsh. They're not good for the environment. So, I take that statement back. Now, I'll also state in regards to the medical community, the naturopathic industry is also corrupt in this world. They're both corrupt. One, the base methodologies are less corrupt, are more beneficial, that being naturopathy. But as the world is, there is dogma, there is problems, there is unrealistic stances that I don't subscribe to. There is, even with me trying to become a naturopath, what else? Whenever I would, speaking of atheism, which I did earlier, I mean, I made one of my theories is called the paradox of atheistic oblivion. Still stand by. I used to still describe a certain black and void afterlife, but we have no proof of that at all. The notion of a black and void after our consciousness passes on is just as has just as little proof as the religious mythologies note depictions of the afterlife in a non-symbolic manner. We have no proof of what comes after life as we perceive it in our bodies. None whatsoever. So whatever notions I still followed in that regard were wrong. I'm still going. And I refute anti-atheistic notions such as I think I just realized why it's so hard for me to do this. Going over all of my incorrect notions or what I was led astray on. It's not just because, like what I mentioned earlier, how much I've said, how much time I've put into checking and rechecking my knowledge. It's not just that. It's just I'm thinking, I'm trying. I'm more focused on my failures than actually trying to locate the incorrect information. In my memory recall. Oh yeah, in regards to this, just correction of, in regards to my explorations, in my 7th scientific proposal video, when I was talking about the corporation Desjardins, insurance and banking company, rules over the city of Leviz. It's a major elitist faction there. When I mentioned their net worth in there, that I had been correct about certain information of it prior, I thought it was like, what did I say? 40 million? So that they were estimated being $400 billion in net growth. I misread that. I meant to say 40 billion, not. Okay. They're ultra rich controllers, definitely are affiliated to that amount of wealth, 400 billion. But the company itself, what's publicly displayed, 40 billion as apparent. So my mistake. Oh yes, speaking of my scientific proposal videos in regards actually to holistic healing, when I was talking about, I believe it was it part 3? My scientific proposals? That was around the time when you can tell in the videos I was making alterations to, I was breaking free of the major medical propaganda out there. But I still, even though I condoned nutritional alterations, proper dietary habits, acknowledging obviously the terribly produced foods that are in mass in the world right now, I had said in a portion of one of those videos about how I didn't buy into the whole detox trend that have been pushed through the online spheres in certain amounts. I stand by this statement in regards to the psyops that are very much pushed on these platforms, the gurus that are put through who are attention seekers creating false information, trying to profit off of real holistic practice. I stand by that, but I didn't know, this is how the manipulation works, I didn't know that detoxification was a term used in holistic healing. I didn't know that. I thought purging of pathogens, I thought there was different terms used for it. I didn't know detox wasn't just a term that got thrown through in the online, pushed through the online communities. I didn't know that. I was wrong. Detoxification literally just means cleansing the body and mind of pollutants, metaphysical and physical, you could call it. Still. So I was wrong about that. And in one of those videos, I used chemotherapy as an example of treatment after describing minimalistic beneficial treatment regarding dietary, hormonal alterations, certain minimal reassignment alterations, things of the sort, exercise routines. I use chemotherapy as an example of the treatment being, like, the problem being cancer, not the treatment. Chemotherapy is not a good treatment for cancer. We have cures for cancer. Known this for a long time. It's a problem with the endocrine system. When dealt with properly, it's not just treatable, it's curable. And chemo is not, should only be a last ditch effort. If a patient needs more intensive care, a last resort. Last. Dead last. So I was wrong about that. I'm really, I'm waiting for the right. Okay, there's a certain the reason my storage is so full. There's a certain video project I've been working on that I've been saving for months. It involves the video game Minecraft. I think I've mentioned this in my. Did I mention it in recent videos when I talked about my Minecraft cities from years ago? My literal first videos on this channel. I'm making a follow-up to the cities I constructed in Minecraft, Reef and Icarus. In fact, I'm making an entire, if I can, I'll make an entire channel dedicated to them. I'm creating a whole story around those. I would like. I have 3 cities created: Reef, the one underwater; Icarus, the one in the sky; one called Radiance that I haven't showed yet, but it will be in the video, that's in a ravine. A city in a ravine. And then one called Rimrock, which will be in a deep cave cavern. I've been working on them. I'm making revisions to the cities of Reef and Icarus that I constructed, and a bit to Radiance. I'm creating a whole storyline about it. I want to create a channel dedicated to it. I would like, once they're finished, to see if I could actually release those worlds, those maps, publicly. If I could actually pay or get in contact with a human representative for Mojang Studios and actually turn those into public servers. I've made I have the original worlds, which I'm calling the pre-catastrophe versions, and then there's going to be ruined versions. Further extension of the storyline. Like, looking back at those maps that I made in the game Minecraft, just the video that my first videos on here, really. Shit, I really could have been a gaming level designer if I went down that course some manner. Educationally, I could have been. Made those almost entirely myself. Reef, it took 2 months to build. It took Icarus a month and a half. I grinded. I skipped online classes during the falsely sensationalized pandemic. I spent my time doing that. Okay, there's another correction. I said in Exploring Ottawa Part 3, discussing vaccinations, that I was not an anti-vaxxer. Am I now, given the fact that I've been poisoned by a shot that was not a vaccine even? It was an attempt to immunize individuals. As far as I'm concerned, to purposely damage their immune systems. Am I what you would call what is now referred to as an anti-vaxxer? Not in the sense that some of you may be thinking. Let me put it this way. I am against all mass manufacturing. That includes harsh medical treatments. I only condone minimal usage of them. There are certain vaccines that are better to get, that can be used minimally in certain scenarios. There are others that should not be put in your body at all. And those damn COVID shots weren't either of them. In Exploring Montreal Part 7, I mentioned how a certain area in a certain district, Plateau Montreal, there were closures because of the pandemic. And that thankfully, though, in recent times, most had gotten vaccinated. Why I said that, even though I had gotten to a point of defaming the medical industry, I said that because I thought I was still under the impression that we don't have good methods of treating a lot of illnesses in the modern day, which we don't, even with more natural healing. It's getting harder to do so. Certain environments, people need more intensive care. They need a combination of both. It should be predominantly more natural. But anyway, I was convinced that it was still, that at the very least, people were able to get back to some amount of employment legally, and there wasn't as much of a danger to those who were immunocompromised because of it, which was wrong. And I'm going to actively edit the comments and description of that video in regards to that portion there. In fact, when I find it and I feel it's, here's what I'll do. When I have the time, I go back and look through all my content, which I have done at points, but obviously not to certain extents. When I find something that I feel I was severely incorrect on, needs to be stated, corrected, I'll edit the description. I'll edit the description. I'll edit the comments. I'll pin the comment. Whenever this first strike has expired from my channel, hopefully if I can maintain not getting another one until that 3 months is up, I will edit, I will pin a comment correcting myself, putting a timestamp and everything. I will do so, as I've done in the past, starting with Exploring Ottawa Part 3, was it Part 7? Maybe Part 6 or Part 7, and Exploring Montreal Part 7. And maybe Exploring Laval a portion of Exploring Laval Part 2. Yeah, Part 2. Anything else? Oh yeah. Speaking of which, again, in my pornographic content on Pornhub, in my first video, when I was discussing using certain antibiotic ointment as lubricant for those who are homeless, or just keeping some on hand for those who are homeless in unsanitary conditions in case they were to get a cut to immediately disinfect it. That is a method. You can. And from what I've observed, it depends on the brand. I know I didn't, in the video, I was not trying to focus on the brand in terms of promotion. I was trying to focus on the product. But depending on the product and therefore the brand, yes, that would be beneficial, minimally used in terms of treating infection to prevent it. But again, be wary. Depending on the actual ointment, it can apply to large surfaces, especially if you're using it as a lubricant safely, and thus trying to prevent some amount of potential infection given certain areas you are in, you'll be sleeping in, and if you're being sexual in, one, use it minimally, and two, be wary of the brand, because depending on what is used, it could dry out the skin. Like, don't use petroleum jelly in any form. Petroleum jelly, it's not even effective at healing wounds, really. It takes a while compared to other better methods. And depending on how they process it, it can dry out the skin. Don't use Polysporin brand. Don't use it. It is not beneficial. Just know which one you're purchasing. For the kind that I mainly used as a lubricant and a anti-infectant, they worked. For the amount that I used, I also didn't slather myself in it. It worked. I didn't experience any skin dryness, and definitely didn't kill off any beneficial bacterium that our dermatology is teeming with, in any major extent at least. What else? Yes, in regards to my comments on artistic creation, specifically what I've said about sex work and my analysis of those of younger generations, I feel under capitalism, under exploitation, I feel stating that they should wait in regards to videographic content or photographic displays of themselves in sexual performance for profit and just in general. I feel they should wait until they are of older teenage years, young adults. But me condoning the fact of prostitution or those going into sexual performance amongst their own age ranges and potentially using that for self-profit under corrupt capitalistic economy, me condoning it, I still stand by that. Because there is no effective way to police. One, there is no actual policing of abusive. One, prostitution is not sex trafficking, despite what people may convolute it with. So believe that sex work and erotic displays can be used in a beneficial manner that are not encroaching all this technology, all of media, all these devices, consoles, and how art is displayed through them. It is all, in the modern day, encroaching, has a destructive element to it, but I do believe it can be used in beneficial manners. In regards to policing prostitution, restricting it to certain age ranges, it already doesn't work. Happens in mass on the daily by those who supposedly are opposed to such, what is portrayed in the mainstream media, who are very clearly involved with it. And those behind the scenes of the mainstream media, who people don't pay attention to for anything. Regardless, it can't be policed, and claiming that it's somehow that adults are less susceptible to manipulation than children, at least in teenage years in that regard, is, especially when trauma has been instilled, is not truthful. It's not an argument to be made. I do not condone any form of hedonistic sexploitation. I am already opposed, and I've made many comments. All of the in-person establishments I've attended within the industry, and with how much I've defamed them, called them out on nonsense, tried to display it on here. You know, I don't condone abusive sexual relations. As far as I'm concerned, people engaging amongst their own age ranges, if they have matured enough at their stage in life to feel ready to practice such, as far as I'm concerned, it is their right to do so. It is healthy for them, if they are at that point, to do so amongst those, provably so, who are close in age, close in development to them. As far as I'm concerned, in a world where we are enslaved to currency, then if they so choose to make profit from it, in regards to charging for services, as far as I'm concerned, so be it. So I stand by that. What else?